Hello, and welcome to another edition of Projects in Context. I am your host, Dr. Mark Lewis Johnson Sr., and I am here in Martin Chapel on the beautiful campus of New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary. And you all are invited to come. Great things are happening here, and we want you to be a part of it as well. Now, today, we have a special guest, someone who knows very familiar with ministry inside the church and inside the classroom. Dr. Ronny is joining us today. Dr. Raines, would you please say hello to our listeners?
Hello, listeners. Yeah, I have a great love for NOBTS. My days there were amazing, and I know they're amazing for you as well. And even if you're a prospective student, it is a great place to study and learn and prepare for ministry. So thank you for looking at NOBTS. But I'm again, Ronny Raines. I pastor at First Baptist Church, Clarksville, Tennessee now. But when I did my doctoral work, I was pastoring First Baptist Church, Cold Spring, Kentucky, which is outside of Cincinnati, but still in Kentucky. And it was a great journey for me. And I'm excited to talk about my doctoral project and how the Lord used that in my life, but also to advance His kingdom literally around the world.
Yeah, Tennessee and Kentucky. Listen, those are the two places I have the utmost respect for, and it's a love-hate relationship. With Kentucky, now I played basketball in Indiana, so I got a lot of time spending with you guys, and I know how rowdy you guys get over there.
We're excited about basketball season. We don't know what Kentucky, we think Kentucky's going to. We appreciate Coach Pope and what he's doing up there in the recruiting, so we'll see here in a few months.
So it's always been a good place. And then, of course, with Tennessee, I planted a church, and so most of the support we've received was for some great people at Tennessee. Really excited for the work that you have done there as well. Hey, listen, you know, this whole entire podcast is about projects in context. And before we deal with your projects and some of the things that you're going through there, can you talk a little bit about your context? Now, I know you were at a different place then, but talk to me a little bit about the context that you were in while you were going through your DMin program.
Yeah, the context for me, I was pastoring in Elizabethtown, Kentucky at Northside Baptist Church. I was there about 10 years. Mm-hmm. Our state convention leadership contacted me one day and asked about me praying about going to Northern Kentucky, the First Baptist Church, Cold Spring. It was a larger church in Northern Kentucky. They had a long tenured pastor. We've been in Elizabethtown, as I said, for 10 years, had a very stable, fruitful, effective ministry there. But my wife and I drove up to First Baptist Cold Spring. We understood the context. The pastor, again, had been there for almost 30 years. But he had some addictions in his life. And those addictions led to all sorts of issues in his life, ultimately leading him to end up in prison. Not many folks can say that happens in ministry very much. But as you can imagine, when you have a long tenured pastor, some addictions come out, some behaviors in his life, he ends up in federal prison. And the church splits 2 times in the midst of that because of that issue. And then we step into that. So the church was very dysfunctional. The church was struggling in many ways, needed serious revitalization. And as I stepped into that, the opportunity opened for me to do my doctoral work at New Orleans Seminary. And it was just a godsend. It was one, I would say, therapeutic for me as I walked through that. It was an intense time of ministry for me there, trying to solve some of those issues, get the church focused back right again, help them. They were very internally focused, but to help them get externally focused. And so that was a great relief for me therapeutically that I could walk through some studies that academic standards are high, but also I knew that I was going to be able to read and write based on my ministry context at First Baptist Cold Spring. So it was really healthy for me personally, but also to see a church that was so divided and so internally focused, to see the Holy Spirit work in that church and using this doctoral project to get them healed up again and revitalized again, but also to get them to focus externally. It was just a godsend for me personally, but also for the church as well. And the professors at NOBTS were amazing to walk with me through that journey. They were comforting to me, they were helpful to me, but they also gave me great insight about the project and leading that church forward.
You know, I wanted to ask you something. You mentioned how the Holy Spirit was on the move and you start to see some great things happen. But for every glory, there's a story. There's a story that kind of dictates that this wasn't easy. Like oftentimes we look at the end, but what were some of the challenges that you all faced as you begin to take this concept and this project and begin to place it inside of a context to see some great things that you just mentioned just happen? What was that like?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. When I went into the writing assessment process of that, the seminars were outstanding because I was reading books and writing papers that related to my context. And I was able to just walk through some of those issues I was dealing with day in and day out.
Yeah.
How do you deal with conflict? How do you bring healing to a very dysfunctional congregation? How do you see revitalization happen in a context that they were very close to being foreclosed on by the bank because they couldn't make the mortgage payment? So how do you deal with all those things? And then you see broken relationships and just trust issues as well. Yeah. And so I was able to do those seminars, and they were so helpful to address those issues. And then I came to the writing project, and I think, how are we going to implement this in the context of First Baptist Cold Spring? And when I went to that seminar, I went in with one idea, and by the time the seminar was over, it was a totally different idea from there. But it's just collaborative learning. They were able to invest into that, speak into that, help me see that in a more defined way. And so one of the things I wanted to do is to take a selected group of leaders from First Baptist Church Cold Spring and to use them in an evangelistic outreach in Campina Grande, Brazil.
Wow.
So it was in another country around the world.
Yeah.
And so from there, we wanted to do an evangelistic outreach, but we also wanted to plant a church. So here was a church that's struggling to survive back in Kentucky, but we're moving to plant a church, a new birth, in Campina Grande, Brazil.
Yeah, right.
I didn't want to do it just in theory. I wanted to do it in practice. I wanted to go do it. So I took a selected group of people, walked them through the journey. Then we partnered with one of our IMB missionaries serving in Brazil, and we went down there and literally planted a church in Brazil. And we had a sponsoring church. We planted a church. And then during the project, because I wanted to make sure the research, the data, all those things were correct, I went back on the year anniversary that we did that and preached in the church again, and it was standing room only.
Come on.
And I encouraged that church to say, you all need to make the mother church a grandparent.
Wow.
You all need to birth another church. And so we stayed in contact with them and still do to this day. But I didn't want to just do it on paper. I wanted to do it in practice because it helped our church experience revitalization to say the Lord's using us to plant another church in another country, which will plant another church from there. Yeah. So it was something that I was able to see those believers have a very internal focus. All of a sudden, it gets external. And then that evangelistic passion happens in our own community as well. Yeah. But the Lord was faithful. The Holy Spirit led and gave direction to that. And it was just a joy for me, but it was a joy for our church to see our church all of a sudden go through some hurt, but also to realize that God was using our church to make a kingdom difference around the world. Yeah. You know, to see people come to Christ, see disciples being made, and see other churches being planted. But also I would say for me that I would not be the place I'm at today in pastoral ministry in the area of even revitalization if it wasn't for my doctoral work at New Orleans Seminary. God used that to prepare me not only for that assignment, but for the next door he was going to open and the next door after that. Yeah. And so I appreciated that. And when you walk into church revitalization, many times you're walking into an ICU setting because there's a church somewhat maybe on life support. Yeah. That's a hard journey to walk through.
Absolutely.
It's a needed journey to walk through because it's about the glory of God in the midst of that. And so to have that experience at New Orleans, to be able to just to seminars, but the writing project helped me to be a better writer, helped me to be a better thinker, helped me to articulate my ideas in a better way, but also I think helped me to be a better pastor and preacher to people.
All right, my friend, you just woke me up a little bit. You know, I teach church revitalization here on campus, and one of the things I'm always excited about when I talk to someone who goes through that process is, what are you seeing? What are some of the trends that you're seeing based on your experience, both here domestically and also overseas? What are some of the things that if you could say, hey, churches, you kind of need to keep your eyes on this, because I think this could be one of the keys to possibly unlock what God is doing in your life. What would you say to them?
Yeah, here's one of the things I would say in church revitalization. One, I have a significant love for pastors. I invest in pastors a lot because if churches are going to be revitalized, pastors need to be revitalized. So I want to make sure I walk with those pastors and make sure they're healthy, they're serving well, and they understand the commitment and the time related to revitalization. But also when it comes to churches, I would say for them, one, they need to see some wins. They need to see some celebrations. It could be small, could be larger. Some small wins would be seeing some people come to Christ. I'm literally meeting with the church this afternoon in the area of revitalization. They haven't seen anybody come to Christ in 3 years in that church. They haven't had a baptism in 3 years. One thing we're praying for is that they would see somebody hear the gospel, get saved, follow the Lord in believers' baptism. So those are significant. But there's also some bigger wins as well. When I came to First Baptist Clarksville, I'd been here about 10 months, and we had a Sunday called One Day. They needed a major win, and we were going to retire all the indebtedness in one single Sunday, cash, and do it. It was a major, major ask. But we came together that Sunday morning. It was one of those holy ground moments. The glory of God was here, and they brought in well over $1 million cash that Sunday morning and eliminated indebtedness in one day. Wow. That was a major win of revitalization for First Baptist Clarksville. And I could tell you story after story out of that. But small wins and victories, major wins and victories, but it's all for the glory of God and to see pastors healthy and churches healthy. For me, that's the work of revitalization.
Dr. Raines, I know I speak on behalf of our entire institution to let you know that we're proud of the work that you guys are doing and just really excited about it as well. Listen, I got two questions, though. Two questions. Here's the first one. I hope you're ready. Are you ready? What's your favorite movie?
Well, I just have to say, I just went to watch, my wife and I just went to one on Friday called The Forge.
The Forge, we saw that yesterday. My wife and I saw that yesterday.
It was an incredible movie. I love the gospel focus. I love the discipleship process. I love the accountability process. I would have to say that one right now.
Right now.
That movie. It was incredible.
Yeah, that was a great one. That's a great film. We just watched it. It was a wonderful time, and I would encourage anyone who hadn't seen The Forge, you need to go see that one. Now, here's the second question. I was wondering, just if there's a pastor or a leader out there who just want to hear more about your project and some of the things that you're doing, could you send them to your website and possibly any administrative personnel that you may have that they can reach out to if they have questions for you or just want to ask you certain things? How can they best do that?
Yeah, I love pastors, and if I can ever help you, you don't hesitate to contact me. You're welcome to go on to First Baptist Church, Clarksville, Tennessee. Our website, you'll see our staff page there. You'll see my picture there, some information, but you'll also see an email link there as well. Shoot me an email. I'll respond back to you. I promise I'll do that, and we can get in touch. And as iron sharpens iron, we can sharpen one another. We're in this together, and in truth, we're better together when it comes to revitalization and the work of ministry. So I'd love to partner with you and help any pastor I possibly could.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Ronny Raines, thank you so much for being a part of this Projects in Context. We're so appreciative of pulling your project out the vault and allowing people to see it along the way. So thank you so much for being a part of it. And to all of our listeners, stay tuned, subscribe to our YouTube channel, be a part of this amazing journey where we're pulling out the vault. All of those demon projects has been locked away. We want you to hear from the individuals who pulled them together, and their lives have been enriched, and they want to do the same for you. Until the meantime, may God bless you and keep you in His perfect peace.